our bodies breathe without us really having to think about it. But if you were to pinch your own nose and hold it for over a minute, you'd understand how important air is, how important that the breath that we all breathe is, which is the spirit. It's not seen, but it keeps all of us alive simultaneously. There's no one who's able to exist without it. Once we realize that there's this one thing that we are all connected that keeps our symphony of heartbeat going, then it's easy to help the most skeptical person understand that, hey, the only reason we're talking is because of something that we can't see. So that is the spirit realm. So that's what keeps us alive. So let's connect to that first. When we think about what we are, 73 trillion cells, then we have this brain, but it's the God of those cells. If the brain is balanced, the cells are joyous. They're like, hey, everything's good. Why not get this in order first and get my brain in order, get my body in order?
Welcome to What the F is Wrong with Our Health. It's a show that focuses on cutting through the BS of our modern medical system, focusing on toxic lifestyles and old ways of thinking that are keeping us sick. I'm a board certified physician in regenerative medicine. I was a rebel that left traditional medicine 20 some years ago to help people actually live without disease, live without drugs. And on today's segment, we have Michael Carter. And I'm really excited to have
Yes,
him
sir.
on board today. He's a health and fitness coach based in LA. Back in 2009, he started Michael Carter Lifestyle. And it's all with this mission of helping people choose a lifestyle and one that they desire, focusing on both the physical and the mental attributes to obtain their divine potential, which I'm going to have Michael elaborate on because I think this is a really interesting take on health and wellness. So, Michael, thank you for being on board here. And do you have any thoughts that you just want to open up with before we jump into a conversation?
One of the biggest thoughts can express to the viewer is self-love and self-care. Love is a verb. That's what I want to really get out there. And if we as a society, as a collective, can understand that love requires work, so when people get married, they say, I love you. That's the most part. In that was a lot of work. And if we fall in love with the work, then love will do what it does, which is bring forth abundance.
Awesome. Because I don't think a lot of
Yeah.
people look at it that way. And they just think it's kind of this natural, emotional instinct. And you're right. Because, why would you have so much disruption in our health, in our lives, in our relationships? And I think we ignore that massive factor that you just brought up. And so, what I want to ask you, Michael, is let's start with, I guess, how you became who you became, because people are always interested in the
Yes.
story of what were your influences, your inspirations. I did read that there was that tragic loss of your mom at a
Yes.
very young age and that you lived with your grandparents. And if you could just kind of tell us that whole
Yeah. So
situation.
yeah. Well, I was born in '77 in Washington D.C. Grew up there in the late '80s, early '90s throughout high school, and tragically, I lost my mom at the age of 9. I was very sudden, um, cardiac arrest. She wasn't living the healthiest lifestyle. She smoked, she drank. Single mother of two, me 9, my brother 18, and it was devastating to say the least to me. Went to live with my grandparents, who were very religious, both of them in the church, which helped to anchor me in an environment that was heavy in uh, drug activity, should I say. And when I went to live with my grandparents, my uncle also lived there as well. And he was a catalyst in getting me into the fitness lifestyle. He saw that I was interested in his weights that he had in the basement, and he took me under his wing and was like, "Hey, let me show you how to really build your physique." So that was the beginning of my journey. And as I started to work on myself as a young man, I realized I found something that had uh, short term and long term gratification encapsulated into one. I could work out and get a feel
Right.
strong, and then later down the line, I got stronger. It made me feel more confident. My mood was better. And so I fell in love from there as far as the fitness part went. And then as I grew and aged and encountered more people, the nutrition, the spirituality, all of those things came together, and I started to bring them together under one umbrella, which is the life.
So did you formalize all this, Michael, before 2009, or was it that the marker where you said, okay, this is what I want to do and help people and
No,
inspire
but
people?
2009. By the time I moved to LA, I was, the fitness professional in Washington. So I was doing the daily news, giving fitness tips. I was working at the Sports Club LA. So I was in the upper echelon of uh, people in the Washington area as their health consultant and trainer. And so I wanted to bring that out to LA, where the landscape was in totality seemed to be about health and wealth. Because of course DC is popular. Yeah.
Right. No, and I'm sorry, I failed to mention that in the introduction how, you've coached, executives from all over the world, actors, models, rock stars, uh,
Yeah.
kids. And I think it's wonderful that you're able to reach such a massive spectrum of people. And so I'm curious, how are you able to reach all of these levels of individuals in your
Um,
expertise?
I would say that one of the key things is to stay young at heart and be relatable and be real. People respond to honesty because it allows them to be themselves. When you have an air about you, when you're pretending or you're trying to fit a archetype, people can feel that. But when you come to them raw and real, it allows them to let their hair down, be vulnerable, and be themselves and be playful. So that's if it's a 7-year old to a 71-year-old, I'm the same person. If it's someone who has a 9 to 5 or someone who's making 100 million a year, I'm the same person. I don't give anyone any more uh, attention or status. I meet them or I treat them as I meet them, so I say. So whoever you are as a person on the inside, that's what you will. That's what I will respond. Mm.
Absolutely. You're talking
Yeah.
about being genuine, being
Yes.
authentic, being real, and it's so true. And because I think that that is what the world
Yeah.
misses tremendously, and hence, why I left traditional medicine. I just saw it as very
Yes.
deceitful, and I felt
Yes.
like a drug pusher, big time drug pusher. Because I grew up in the rough parts
Yes.
of East LA with a lot of gangs and drug members, pushers. And I was telling my wife, like, I don't know, over 25 years ago, I just felt like one of those guys pushing drugs, except it was legal and I
Hey,
had a white coat. So
and you were correct.
exactly. Have you noticed
Yes.
this, Michael? Because of being raw, because of being honest, only because
Yeah.
I've had this experience, it doesn't necessarily
Yes.
make you popular, but when you connect
Yes.
with people who appreciate you being
Yeah.
genuine and real,
Hey,
it's
you hit the nail on
magical.
the head. I mean, you really it can be a lonely road, but it's very colorful and
Yeah.
and very rewarding.
Yeah.
And part of it's because it's not so crowded. Like they say, in the Bible, the path to righteousness is a narrow road. So I always say, i- if I see the masses going in any direction, definitely going in the opposite direction. That's just one of my rules of life. Um, because usually when people are going one direction, there's a lot, or there's a deficit of critical thinking going on, sort of like that herd mastermind mentality. So, yes, it can be lonely, but it's rewarding because you really are connecting with people and making a difference and getting deep into the nuances of people's story. And I always say it's like extracting weeds. The, the, the deeper you get, the more you can extract the weed to the seed and to the core. Then we can have green apple.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome because you're really talking about you getting to the
Yes.
root cause of issues. And what fascinated me when I was reading in your bio, because you don't see this, and that is that this whole divine potential, because you know it's not just about a
Mhm,
bicep or you know the
mhm,
endurance, those facets. Yes, I
mhm.
understand it's what people want, but I want to know how you got into this digging into the divine potential, because I find this
Well,
fascinating.
like I mentioned, I have to credit my grandparents for creating that spiritual foundation. We would pray consistently. We had a habit of community, church community, of bringing our minds together and uh, calling the reality we wanted from the spiritual realm. So as I got to see that it worked, and the Bible says, "With two or more are gathered, there I am also." When you have people drawing from the unseen and bringing it into the physical, and you see it happening over and over again, we realize that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. When people get caught up because they get too caught in the dense vibration of material, not understanding just the microphone, everything you see around me was a thought in someone's mind that was held long enough that begat action, and then it became a physical thing. Even me and you was a thought in our parents' mind, a faction. They held it long enough to make it happen, you know. So yeah.
Absolutely. And so how is it that you're able to bridge that with your clients when you're talking about, yes, I'm going to help you with your health, I'm going to help you with your fitness, but there's this whole spiritual realm, this whole spiritual element that you connect them to, and um, are they open to this? How is it that how do you inspire and educate them on this
Well, one
element?
one of the main um, examples is right in front of us all the time. So that's the breath. So a lot of times when a client first comes to me, I always tell them to connect to the breath. It's something that's forgotten about because our bodies breathe without us really having to think about it. But if you were to pinch your own nose and hold it for, you know, over a minute, you'd understand how important air is, how important that the breath that we all breathe is, which is the spirit, which is not seen, but it keeps all of us alive simultaneously. There's no one who's able to exist without it. So once we realize that there's this one thing that we are all connected to that keeps our symphony of heartbeat going, then it's easy to help the most skeptical person understand that, hey, the only reason we're talking is because of something that we can't see. So that is the spirit realm. So that's what keeps us alive. So let's connect to that first. And then from there, we can add on all of the physical attributes, the health, and the vitality that you seek. But without number one, there is nowhere else to go. So yeah,
It really is, you're going from the
yes.
inside out, and I know, and it's interesting because I've been going through this whole kind of education, connecting with the
Mhm,
subconscious mind and manifesting what it is that you really want in your life. And when I heard on your description about success as an inside job, I was like, man, I relate to
mhm.
this so well. And I just wanted you to elaborate on, so that people viewing can understand that everything does start with ourselves, with our minds, with our thinking. And because a lot of people think that success is out there versus
Yes.
starting within. And so I was so happy to see this, that, your whole notion of success is an inside job, so that you could just kind of elaborate on that
Well, one
concept.
one of the things that helped me realize it was as I got to work with people um, from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So as I started to climb that ladder and get to a certain echelon of people who seemingly had everything that most people might aspire to, all of the accoutrements of lifestyle, of living, the homes, the cars, the travel, the this and that. And then when I would sit with them, they would tell me, "Hey, man, I don't care about any of it." You know, um, the happiness wasn't there, and they had gathered everything externally, but hadn't done the inner work to create inner peace. So when I started to see that over and over and over, that was my affirmation of what I felt, that everything starts within. Because when we think about what we are, we're what, I don't know, 73 trillion cells uh, inside of this body doing its thing, whatever that might be. Then we have this brain, but it's the God of those cells. So if the brain is balanced, the cells are joyous. They're like, hey, everything's good. If the brain is off track, the cells are like, man, there's chaos in our universe, in this universe of the body that is just as expansive as the outer universe. So I always thought, why not start here? If I have a universe here, why not get this in order first and get my brain in order, get my body in order? And to me, it's like, hey, if I get this together, it's going to give me a better chance to get all the, completely. I'll have a great foundation.
When you're talking to your clients about this, are they able to understand and then apply that principle of they're going to get further in life once they do realize they have to do that inside work, that inside job.
So it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on their upbringing. It depends on the amount of openness where I catch them at. I do know that over time, if people work with me long enough, I have a way of melting the ice, so to speak. So say if someone comes to me as an iceberg, under enough uh, energetic vibration, it will start to melt. Loosen up a bit. If they stay long enough, we can uh, we can melt it on down, and then they start to realize, because things start to change in their lives. They start to feel better. Their home life gets better. Uh, they breathe better. They their outlook on life starts to change. You get different perspectives, and once you see a different perspective, it's hard not to see it. Most of the world is able to be controlled, because if you keep the blinders here, they won't see it. But if you move it a little bit, you can't unsee it. And if you move it a little bit, then all of a sudden they're gone. Now you have a 360 view.
Yeah.
So I do find I have had a lot of success. Um, One thing I've learned in the process is to never try to change anyone. You can facilitate their growth and hold space for them, but adults are going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. So just try to guide.
Absolutely. And this is where I relate with you tremendously because it's the same thing that I do here. And I tell the patients, look, all I could do is
Mhm.
be your guide, give you the necessary information, and for that matter, dispel a lot of the
Yes.
mythology and
Yes.
outright deceit that I experience in traditional medicine. And look, people say, well, yeah, but what about if you need
Mhm.
surgery? I get that. But I'm not even talking about the type of medicine where we need urgent care. I'm talking about the other 98%, which is about prevention and or helping people reverse chronic disease. And so I do tell patients, because I remember a friend of mine asked
Mhm.
me years ago, how do you convince, and I
Mhm.
want to ask you this question, but he asked me, how do you convince people to be healthy? And I said, I don't. I mean, it's not my
Mhm.
job to convince. I'm here to educate and
Mhm.
hopefully inspire. But I do tell them this is
Mhm.
about you shifting into the person that you want to be and act
Mhm.
like that person. So if you want to lose weight, what is it that someone who's not overweight would do in terms of the
Yes.
food selections? Would they be more active? Would they be
Yes.
less sedentary? These sorts of things. So that they appropriate the habits of that person that they see
Yes.
themselves being. So so going back to you, Michael, then in terms of that original point or question, um, like how do you force people to get healthy? I mean, you already kind of answered. You said, "Look, I'm here to guide and be their guide." But have you had clients that say, "Okay, Michael, you're going to make me what I want to be," and so it's all on you. So they give you all
Well,
the
then I give it right
responsibility.
back to them. First of all, I'm like, thank you, but no thank
Yeah,
because I have my own body and to tend to in my family. So what I try to say is I try to use something I call social mathematics. You break things down to 1/2. Let's keep things simple. So I say, okay, people come to me and say, I want to get to a destination. Basically, that's what they're saying. And I'm like, they're telling me I'm here and I want to get here. I'm like, okay, great. Now, if you're in a car and this is your destination, this is where you're starting, you're going to have to take right. You're probably going to want to take the most efficient road. You want to take a road that that maybe is scenic and fun and all of that. But you have to get there. You can't teleport. Okay, so that's first. You have to be realistic. There might be traffic or obstacles or stoplights or whatever. So that's going to be setbacks or habits that are hard to break. But we're going to keep moving forward. And then I have them be realistic with themselves. How bad do you want to get to your destination? Like, if you sort of want to go, then maybe you're not ready for the trip. I wouldn't jump in the car just yet. If you have a burning desire, then hey, let's go. Let's create the playlist. Let's get there. So then, if it's a long journey, I break it up into segments. Okay, we're going to get here to here. We're just going to focus on that. We'll do that. Maybe that's just more flexibility, accountability, or whatever that might be. Once we get there, then we go to the next phase, then we go to the next phase. Sort of like walking. I always tell my clients this: everybody we see around us couldn't walk when we got here. Everyone just crawling, falling on their ass. But then we just kept going, it's 100% success rate for those who have legs. So if
exactly.
if we all could do that, we definitely can lose weight. We can eat healthier. It's just you have to want it, and little babies want to walk no matter what. So I just asked them to answer your question: how bad do you want it? If they want it bad enough, I can definitely we'll break it up in there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because I've asked patients, after I've gone through, say,
Hmm.
their blood work and going through all the history, I asked them what's kind of a ridiculous question, but it really isn't. Because I say, "Why do you
Hmm.
want to be healthy?" And they look at me like, "Why?" I said, "Yeah, I know it's kind of an obvious question, but I said, if you really think about this, most people are
Hmm.
not healthy." There's a study that came out of Duke University a couple years ago. And this study was pretty astounding. It didn't shock me,
Hmm.
but it did, in that 90%, 90, of this entire country has an abnormal metabolism. You can define that by being overweight, obese, diabetic, pre diabetic, hypertensive, whatever the case might be. So that's why I reiterate that to my patients. They like, so why do
Yeah.
you want to be healthy? Because obviously a lot of people
Yeah.
choose not to. And like you said, it's wanting it is a big part of it. And what is it that's going to sustain you to stay on that path? And so I came across something that you do have, Michael. I
Mhm.
wanted you to elaborate and go blow by blow on your 10 lifestyle
Yeah.
principles. And what is it that you impart to your clients on these? You go blow by
Yeah.
blow of each principle because I'm
Okay.
very
Let's.
curious to know.
So, so taking a page out of course, the Bible, which has 10 Commandments. They seem to be pretty popular and have some longevity to them. So,
Right.
so I thought to myself, let me come up with 10. See how long these will last. Um, so yeah, and I write these down and live by them, share them. So number one is your body is your temple, right? So uh, and when you think of a temple, it's a place of sacred place. It's a place that you clean. It's a place that have reverence for. And one of the sentences I use for that is "No thieves in the temple." Right. So thieves are anything that's coming to steal from the temple, steal your joy, steal your peace, steal your health. So those can be food, habits, thoughts, any other vices, um, lack of sleep, also lack of acquiring knowledge about how to upkeep the temple. So that's number one. Number two is guard your mind. So standing guard at the doorway of your mind, because what you think you become. So that's another one where if people could really monitor what they think, how they think, and um, sort of like letting someone into a club. Some people get in, some people don't get in. You can't just let everyone, everything, every thought root in your mind. So that's number three. Or number two. Number three is to nurture your spirit. So that's to feed the spiritual aspect of yourself, whether that's through meditation, whether that's through um, creation. We all come in as children having a certain thing that we love to do. Some kids like to build things, some kids like to paint or draw or be physical. And then we get away from those things and we get away from our natural connection to the spirit realm. So I always say nurture that side of yourself that you came in with. Um, Number four, this is a good one. Cleanliness, order and cleanliness is next to godliness. And what that means is there's a frequency. Everything has a frequency, and if we look at nature, nature has a certain order to it, creates a certain frequency, which creates a certain uh, vibration outside, which will inform your vibration inside. So the more you keep your space organized, it reminds you to keep your thoughts organized, and it creates this ping pong effect, which is conducive to reaching higher levels of consciousness. Um,
Right.
Number five, I say give to receive. So what I mean by that is, by giving is is an automatic way to receive. It's just sort of one of the laws of nature, like flow and love. So when you give, you create a cycle or circular motion that gains momentum, and it comes back to give that gift to you. So it's not a linear thing. When you give, and it comes back around. So, and you can stop me if you have any questions on any of these along the way. Number,
No, no, this is fine. Keep
number
going.
six is unapologetically follow your gut or intuition. So I always say, there's the gut and there's the head. The head has been programmed, right? All types of stuff. Most people are following their head. Their gut is like, hey, don't do this. Their head is like, well, this will be fun. And then they go do it, and it's not as fun as you thought, right? So I always say, follow your gut,
Yeah.
because your gut tells the truth. Your head will lie to you all day long.
Okay, on that one, Michael, yeah, we could. I could speak
Yeah.
a little bit because to me, the intuition has guided me the best in
Mhm.
my life. And as it's said, when you listen to your intuition, you're listening to God
Mhm.
talking to you.
Mhm.
And every decision I've made in my life intuitively have brought me to the best places in my life, whether it was my wife, leaving traditional
Mhm.
medicine, where I decided to go to
Mhm.
school at one point when I was 17. And the intuitive voice, and you're so right, Michael, because too many people will overthink that
Mhm.
gut and feel the stress and not make what is
Yeah.
best for them. And so this is what I'm always teaching my daughter. There's nothing more important than intuition. And then, from a more
Mhm.
scientific perspective, and I'm sure you're aware of this, it is the whole gut brain connection, which has been elaborated upon, particularly from German doctors over a
Mhm.
century ago. And I've had patients, for example, because my wife and I, we created this
Mhm.
liver cleanse that has helped so many people over the years, help them reverse diabetes type 2, help them on their to expedite their weight loss. They're learning how to eat because it's not a diet, helps them reverse digestive issues, sleep, all these things. And so many patients ask me when they've gone through this 3 week liver cleanse is, why is it that I feel happier? Why is it that I feel just
Yeah.
overall more positive? And I tell them because in your gut is where you're actually making serotonin, which is the happy hormone, at least
Right.
80%. So, and I get a little foul with my language, but I said, if you feel like shit, many times it's because you're full of shit. And and so many people struggle with digestion because of all the processed foods that
Yeah.
you're well aware of, Michael. And my point is that when we help clean up the body, the temple, as you say, which is so true, that alleviates so many issues that they're having upstairs. And I said, because the more crap you eat, the
Mhm.
crappier you're going to feel. And so this whole intuitive voice and the gut brain connection is so vital to people's health. But a lot of people don't understand this. So I'm glad you're talking about this and that you point this out, for people to know, to understand.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I
anyway,
want to learn
Michael,
more
yeah,
about
continue.
your cleanse as well. So you know, some
No, no, absolutely. I, because my wife, she's a nurse she's she's the
okay.
visionary, frankly. With her support, she's really catapulted what it is that we do at this clinic, because she also, she has the science, and then she has the culinary science. And it was like 15 years ago where we decided we're going to make our own liver cleanse, because the ones that we
Mhm.
had before from these reputable places, people weren't enjoying them for one reason or the other. So then she says, let's put our heads together, and our kitchen became a lab for
Wow.
like 2 years, and all these organic ingredients, all plant based. And when we put this together and we started kind of experimenting, and patients going through it, they're like, wow, this is amazing. What is this? And we say, well, we created this. And when we saw the impact on the metabolic disease that people were suffering, or lack of energy, or
Mhm.
chronic pain, we've been seeing some amazing things over the last 15 years. So we like to start, you talk about cleaning a slate. So we start all our patients
Mhm.
on this, because it's a way for them to connect to foods that'll make them heal versus foods that
Mhm.
make them sick. And a lot of people don't realize how sick they're making themselves with their food choices. So, but yeah, so it's something that's a big fundamental part of what we do here, so that people can understand how to eat. It's so funny, Michael, because so many patients say after they've gone through this detox, they say, what, doctor, basically you taught me
Yeah.
how to eat. And like,
Mhm.
bingo, because we're not
Yeah.
taught nutrition in medical school. And a lot of people are shocked by that. I said, no, doctors, frankly, are the most ignorant when it comes to nutrition, because we're not,
That
simply
blew
because
my
we're not
mind when
taught.
I found that out.
And so I had
I
to,
had a couple of doctors who were my patients, and it was like, hey, we had nothing about nutrition in school. Yeah.
exactly. And it's absurd, Michael. I mean, I almost dropped out of medical school because I I kind of just disagree with
Mhm.
the curriculum. And I've always been kind of a rebel. And it was a thing where, you know what? I'm glad I went through the process, because it taught me that this is what I do not want to
Mhm.
do the rest of my life. I just don't want to be a little
Mhm.
robot throwing out prescriptions the rest of my life. I actually want to educate and inspire people take, like you were saying earlier, take the reins and the accountability. And that is so key when you said about accountability, because in our current medical system, people are just used to give
Yeah.
me my drugs and
Yeah.
I'm out the door, and
Yeah.
take zero accountability. And that's what you and I are trying to teach. But please
Um,
continue.
yes, it is sort of, they think doctors are magicians. We can come back to that. I'll go to number 7. Let's see. Number 7 is continuous personal development. So never, ever, ever stop being curious. Never stop learning. I mean, I'm talking about as curious as a toddler. What's that? What's this? What's that? And really learning and looking for new information that will edify your lifestyle, add to you. So if you do that, I mean, it makes the world that much more enjoyable. I think sometimes people deal with depression because they just plateau and stop growing and learning. In a never expanding universe, you're going against the natural flow and ebb of where you exist at. The universe wants to express itself continuously. And if we're many universes, you stagnate yourself, man. Of course, that's going to cause some depression. You know, so
Yeah,
that's number
absolutely.
7. Number 8 is profit from your passion. You know, whatever you're passionate about, find a way to earn from it, and then you'll never feel like you're working in your life. Number 9 is master your emotions. That's one of those things because through our emotions we can be manipulated and controlled, as we can see through the current state of the social media that we're in the current state of the uh, country and the world for that matter. Um, People are being polarized due to emotion. They aren't critically thinking. They aren't stepping back, looking at the forest for the trees. So they're just in the trees throwing darts and you're my enemy, you're my enemy, you're my enemy. But really, we're all one humanity on one planet. And if we can master our emotions and understand that we're pretty much the same with some different, couple of little differences, you know, but other than that, we all want the same thing. So, uh,
And you're right, Michael, because as I've learned so far in my path of life is that we are more
for
alike than
sure.
we are different, and wanting certain things. And I think when people realize that, they could put their
Yeah.
guards down and try versus trying to always
Yeah.
separate themselves. Understand, look, there's a general humanity. Let's be empathetic. Let's understand that. And yes, do the best that you could in your life, in your individual pursuits. But versus being so judgmental and critical of
Yeah.
other, I think we need to just learn to be more open. But it's hard. It's a challenge for society, to say the least.
Um, yeah. So it's funny you said that it's hard. One of the things that I um, try to pass on to my clients is to enjoy hard things. You know,
Yeah.
nothing about this planet is easy. I mean, people who created, you know, centuries of, trial and error of creating civilizations and nothing, none of that was easy. You know, we see buildings go up. That's not easy. Those are men out there working hard days to create sewer system, plumbing, the glass, and everything that we enjoy. Streets, all of that's hard. So if we understand the reward that comes from hard work because we have a bustling metropolis, right? Hard work. So I try to think of hard work as fun when I just focus on the result of that. Um, and I'll get to 10. This last one. Um, this is sort of the golden rule: be honest with yourself and treat others the way you want to be treated. You know, I think a lot of times if we can first be honest with ourselves, because when we lie to ourselves, it makes it a lot easier to lie to other people. Then we start believing the lie, and all of a sudden, everything is built on that. So be honest with yourself. If you look in the mirror and say, "Hey, I'm a little overweight because I've been eating too much, drinking, doing things that are contrary to what my body needs, and I need to stop." Great. I am actually in control of my emotional state. It's not just a chemical imbalance because chemistry is something that is can be worked on. It's not absolute, every evolving thing. So you can be honest with yourself. You still have a chance to prove yourself. So those are the lifestyle principles. Um, it, I try my best to follow them. I'm not perfect. I mean, so some of them might, get overlooked sometimes.
You have a plan. I mean,
Yeah,
these principles. A lot of
yeah,
people don't even have things that they have written out that they want to follow. And you always hear that whole kind of adage. if you're going to go from A to B and you don't have a map, it's going to take you a long time. Whereas if you do have a map, a game plan, you're going to
Yeah.
get there much faster
Yeah.
and enjoy it, like you're saying. And yeah, no, and I think in these principles, because one thing I do mention to people is that, in other words, to have a healthier life, you have to, yes, in terms of food and nutrition and having some kind of exercise or movement in your life, something to get you out in nature, connect. Because I think we're so disconnected.
That's
That's another
huge.
problem, Michael. I feel that we have way too much what I call e behavior, like an
Mm,
electronic behavior, and everything's in
mhm.
front of computers or phones, four walls. And I make it a point every weekend to go hiking once or twice or three times every
Yeah.
per week, so I can connect with the sun and nature. And I think a lot of people lack that because they're always just in cubicles. So whatever cubicle it is, and that disconnect and
Mhm.
synthetic world, synthetic food, synthetic drugs, all these things have made us such a sick society. So I'm just wondering about your thoughts on that.
Well, if I can go back to, like I said, I did have religious upbringing. You know, it didn't take the archetypes
Yeah.
of God and the devil and whatever people think that is. Let's say it's frequency. So anything that goes towards life is God's frequency or higher self. Anything that goes towards the opposite is lower frequency or artificial. So natural and artificial. So artificial subjugates, uh, imprisons, and natural frees. It frees you up. So uh, this world has been calibrated to keep us in a box or in a mental prison of sorts. So it takes us away from that which is expansive to that which is square in structure. You know, so that is devices, artificial food and coloring, um, uh, off circadian rhythms that have been, out of sync because of artificial light, um, shoes, everything that's confining, right? And the more you get used to that, the more you forget who you are. It's like going further and further away from your natural state of being. And then sometimes you get so far that where you're from, paradise that you're from, is like a faint dot in the distance now, just drifted so far apart. So I try to keep myself in nature. Um, I have a bunch of plants around my house. I love digging into them, replanting. I go in my front yard at night. Um, I, put my feet in the grass. I might go out, take a shower, go out there in my underwear. It's dark. I'm walking in the grass. I'm talking to the plants. I got a squirrel friend that's in my yard. I'm like, "How you doing, buddy?" I got a crow that comes to my fountain, and I talk to him. That's my buddy. You know, I don't know if he feels
Yeah,
the
it's
same about
wonderful.
me, but I'm cool with.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I love this
yeah,
reconnecting because we people don't realize how much
yes.
we need it.
And I always say this: when people go on vacation, no matter who they are, usually their picture that they show is a what a tribute. What do people usually show to show that they're relaxed or having a good time?
Yeah, whether it's at a beach
Water.
or water or
It's usually like their feet or
yeah,
something or glass. It's like, oh, water,
yeah,
right? No one's like, oh, look,
yeah,
look at the building I'm in. Maybe sometimes, but mostly it's nature. And that's because innately
yeah.
we know that's where we come from. We know that's what charges us up the most. So I think it's very, very important to commune with your mother nature, because that's creative. That's the nurturing, you know, that's the womb. That's where we came from. So it's just a beautiful thing to commune with on a consistent basis. Even yes. So I think
Right.
it's extremely, extremely important. Like now, I'm at the point where I don't like wearing shoes as much. Even when I work with clients, I want to wear slides because I want my feet. to be as close to the ground and to spread and to be free as possible. Yeah.
No, absolutely. That the whole grounding concept, like you said, and that whole
Mhm.
connection, and you hear about electrons and how we can attract that from nature and particularly from trees and the earth. And because, as you say, we have all these barriers around us, like literal barriers, the clothes, the shoes, the walls, the electronics. We are furthest from nature and that connection and how it keeps us healthy. And so, the name of this podcast actually is the name of my book, which is "What the F is
Okay.
Wrong with Our Health." And in the book, I broke it up into three sections, which is the food for thought in terms of how we have toxic mindsets, or how we've been drilled to be so obedient, which has kept us sick. Being obedient to your doctor, being obedient to governments and institutions that aren't feeding us what we really need to know to be a healthy society. And but in one of the sections of the book, I call it soul food because it gets more into the spiritual
Yes.
realm of being and what you've been touching upon throughout this show, which I love, and how people need that most critical realm of health, because it's not just about eating broccoli all day or being in the gym, but it's bringing in that core understanding of who we are, what our origins are, and that's what we need to maintain to stay as healthy as we could mentally, physically, and yes, spiritually. And it's not something just to say for the sake of saying; it's that critical. And so, um, but yeah, Michael. So yeah, just basically piggyback. I'm piggybacking on what
Yeah,
you've been
and
saying.
it takes a game plan. That's we see a lot of podcast people talking, and I love all of it. And one of the things I want people to understand that they need a game plan to execute. Because it has to be integrated. It, it's almost unraveling a mental ball that's been so wound up to, like you said, to be obedient, to follow the crowd, to do what feels comfortable.
Yeah,
And you do need outliers like myself and yourself who aren't afraid to say,
I like
forget the norm and just be yourself.
right.
And even if that means that might be ostracized, because I I want to ask you a question about when you decided to go rogue from traditional medical realm. What was the initial catalyst? What was the final straw? And when how old were you? When was that when you decided?
So thank you for that question. It was building up. It really was through
Mhm.
medical school, then residency training, and then went on to work at a couple clinics, and then I ended up at Kaiser. And it was getting to the point where I felt like a failure because, like, I would see the same patients over and over again, and I would say, "Well, try this medication. Well, we'll try that one. Well, this for the side effects, and
Mhm.
so on and so forth." And I realized I wasn't helping people get better. I was just maintaining them on the drugs. In fact, Michael, I came up with MD really means managed disease or more drugs. There was no healing in that. And I saw my colleagues, and it's not like my colleagues were happy about what they were
Right.
doing either, but they would see patients in and out 2 minutes and get them out because you have to
Right.
see 30 more. And so I realized that I was in this like machine, and I started talking to my wife. This was like in the late 90s. So I was in my early 30s. And I was telling her, this is not what I thought it would be being a
Mhm.
doctor in medicine. And I just said, I just feel like I'm just contributing to their disease more than helping them live
Mhm.
free from disease or be healed, which is I thought what a
Mhm.
doctor's job was. And I realized, no, I'm just basically a glorified
Right.
pharmacologist. And so I went to, so here's what it was. Here's the catalyst. I went to a lecture in the year 2000. And ironically, I was at Kaiser when I got this invitation to see what this alternative medicine conference was about. So I go, and it was a weekend, and I'm sitting with doctors where I felt really comfortable because I felt they were like my fellow detractors, that they were like on the same page that I was. They were all medical doctors, but they all felt they could do something better for patients and really help. So there's just one neurologist giving a talk on the top 10 causes of death in this country. And so number one was like heart disease, followed by strokes, followed by cancer. Number four, this is where I really opened my eyes, the pharmaceuticals taken as prescribed. And I was like, I had my epiphany. I was like, bingo, it's what I've been feeling. Like I'm some kind of licensed killer. And, you know, pharmaceuticals, big pharma, as I call it, the pharmafia, is something that really controls the education of doctors and the medical system. So it was at that point that I told my wife, I'm going to quit medicine. And she says, really? After all that training? I said, yeah. I said, I'm miserable. I felt spiritually crushed. I was like, I can't continue with this. So with her help, her support, her love, it was something where we both embarked on this journey of learning about regenerative medicine. And it's been the best thing, because then I said to my wife, I said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to help people not live with disease, not live with chronic, you know, pharmaceuticals, and to actually live a quality life regardless of age. So I've actually slowed my aging process because my health wasn't great in my 30s. I was overweight, always tired. And now that I'm 61, it's like, wow, I could really see how applying all the principles that I preach, that I talk, and because I walk the walk, it's been helping me on my personal growth and journey. And I always tell patients, look, I'm a client or I'm a patient in my own clinic, so this is what you could expect. And it's a wonderful thing to share what you do, what I do, what we do for people, so that they could get at that same plane of mental, physical health, and that spiritual understanding.
Because it's such a beautiful place to be, and it's our default setting. That's another thing I try to impart to my clients and friends and who I come across. Our default setting is harmony, peace, health, happiness, and abundance. So if we were just to do all of the natural things that are here, eat from the earth, breathe air deeply, be in nature, drink water, get sleep with the flow and ebb of the earth, we would just be so naturally vibrant and flexible, free, and playful with each other. And that's, like I said, that's our factory set. We got a lot of bugs in our program.
It-
You
That's
got to
exactly it.
debug the brain computer, and
No, man, you hit on the head. So many people, because of all the viruses,
literally,
literally and figuratively, we got to find that new
yeah.
operating system. And so I'm curious, what have been, I guess, some of the biggest challenges in terms of what you do, Michael, or maybe a particular client that you took them from here to there, and it was something that you just see all this growth of that individual based on your principles.
Oh, so you're saying what is the biggest? Say that one more time.
Like the biggest transformation maybe that you've experienced with one of your clients and what they were going through and how you helped them get to this much higher level of living in all
I don't
aspects
know.
of living.
I've had quite a bit of um, success. One that is recent. I mean, all of my current clients I've had some pretty good success with, but one that's very drastic. I had a client. She's in her 70s. When we met, she was a little bit overweight. She had a um, relationship that was disappointing and heartbreaking, and she had sort of given up on love, and you know uh, we started with her health and just getting her moving, and then we started talking about um, scars from childhood and ways of thinking that have been limiting as we're going through movement and breath. and actually being in nature because she lives close to the beach. And through the couple of years that we have been training, she's lost the weight, changed her outlook on life, found love, found her perfect guy. They just got back from Burning Man. They had a blast. They're looking for they just bought a boat. He has a plane, and they're looking to buy a home together. And when we met, she was overweight and sort of giving up on love, and now she's slim, trim. You know, got her hair done. She's got her guy. They got a bustling, sex life. So that we always laugh about that. That's it's such it's been a beautiful journey to see, and yeah, that's just one of the many success stories. And then you have
Well,
so
that's wonderful.
here,
Yeah. You've made her whole, and that's the beauty. She
yeah,
feels whole
yeah,
again.
yeah. It's really fun to see. It makes it.
So, Michael, if people want to find you, what's the best way that they could find you and look you up? If they want your help. They desperately need what you offer. What's
The
the easiest way that
quickest
they
way
could
you can reach
contact
out
you?
to me on my Instagram at Michael Carter Lifestyle. The website will be up in the next couple of months, but right now you can reach me directly there. DM me or my phone number is there, and you can find out information from me there. And I'm located in Venice Beach, Los Angeles, and I also service Beverly Hills, Bel Air, and Santa Monica area. So yeah, you can find me.
Michael, man, this has been a very enlightening conversation. I really enjoyed it. It's like you're more of a fitness therapist because you really dig deep.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to know that there's someone like you out there who's helping people, again, yes, with their health, with their fitness, but to really connect with their spiritual being. And I think that is something that's tremendous and that you're doing something that's very unique. And I appreciate that.